Well, hello everyone. We're doing back-to-back interviews this afternoon, but we are very honoured and very grateful to be joined by Daniele Tascini here in the chat with us. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hi, Daniel. It's a huge coup for us, Daniel, to have someone like you on. Very well respected, really good stable of games. I know Marcus has said to you one of his favourites is Marco Polo. And I have to say that Teotihuacan is probably one of my favourites from last year. I think that's a fantastic game and a good implementation of the mechanisms. So very welcome. And of course, we've got our friend David with us as well.
I'm here every day.
Thank you for inviting me too.
Very good. And so obviously, I think it's fair to say like a lot of your games come with a fairly high level of complexity, like a lot of interesting things working together. Have you always aimed to design games that are like that are kind of a bit more thinky, or is that just where you've gone over the time?
Remember that I'm not mother language English, so sometimes I don't get every single word you say, so please be patient.
No problem. So I was just asking, your games are quite well known for being pretty complex, a lot of things going on. And have you always enjoyed designing games like that? Or did you start with kind of simpler games and you moved that way?
Oh, well, if you know my games, basically most of them, all of them are, not all, but 99% of them are medium to heavy complexity. It's not something that I choose. It's something that it comes out. I mean, I think my specialty are core mechanisms. Every single game I made has a specific, quite original mechanism. So what I do while developing a game is just trying to find out the best way to use the mechanism I always start from. And try to figure out what becomes best from it. So each mechanism needs a certain amount of things or a certain structure to be exploited at maximum, in my opinion, from the way I work on the game. So most of the time they come out to be quite complex. Yes. I tried to do a couple of games on a family level. If you ever seen Shipland or Council of Four, which is a
Council of Four, yeah.
But it seems the market don't appreciate that range. I think my opinion is that nowadays the range between what is considered easy and what is considered for experts, it becomes much wider than earlier, than say 10 years ago. So if I remember what used to win the Spiel des Jahres as a family game, games like Turm Taxis, games like Tikal, even the most famous Settlers of Catan is, I think, considered too complex now for as an entry level, thinking of games like Coloretto or Dixit or whatever it is. And while what it was considered very complex, I remember one of my favorite games was Kalos. I think now in the current market, Kalos is in a medium.
Yeah.
So
when it first came out, it was considered to be a very complex game, wasn't it? But the market has moved on and it's become more embracive of more complex interlocking mechanisms to make more complex games.
Yeah, light games are getting lighter and heavy games are getting heavier.
Yeah, sure.
It's a polarization in the market in terms of that.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to probably say as well, like when you get somebody that is a fan of Tascini games, they really love pretty much all of that range. I think it must be really pleasing for you when you see people painting up their Tzolk'in boards and their cogs and pimping out the games and things. Is that something that you had hoped would happen?
Of course. Every game I make is just like a child. Something creatures you make, and then it lives by itself.
Yeah.
So following the success and how people like it or pimp it or whatever, it's just like watching your creature to how it grows.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And are you kind of done with Tzolk'in now, or is there more to come for that?
Sorry?
Have you got anything else coming out for Tzolk'in, or do you think that's...
For Tzolk'in?
Yeah.
The plan is to make a special edition for the 10th year.
Wow.
It's planned with CG to do something in 1 year or two. So I think we're doing something as brass.
Yeah.
To make it the same game but improve and like to fix the small flaw you used to have the original one. Consider that Tzolk'in was a great idea, but it was basically my first game. So now I wouldn't repeat certain mistakes I did.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, authors, for example, often go back and look at their first books and look at them quite critically. So you do the same with your games, do you, Daniel? You go back and look at the games and think about what you could have done differently if you had your time again.
Well, I think everybody does that in more or less, depending on how much. Since I still consider Tzolk'in my masterpiece, because it's the only one really innovative mechanism in an environment where a couple of thousand games come out every year. It's very difficult to do something original.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every mechanism, every game is just a lot of already seen things remixed together with a little twist or interesting way to mix it up. So I think Tzolk'in it's a masterpiece, but being my first work, yeah, it could be improved. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's. I was going to say, I think it's a great credit to you when you read what people feel should be games in their own collection. That Tzolk'in is often one of those games. Is considered that you must have that game in your collection because it is such a classic.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, not to forget all the other masterpieces and near masterpieces since, because we got a lot of cool stuff cooking for the near future.
Yeah.
For all the other T games.
Yeah, and obviously you kind of.
No, that's what I was meaning. I mean, probably the last games I've done are better done, better structured. Tekhenu, it would be a very, very good game, of course, because I work with David, which is an excellent game designer. So he probably completed where I lack.
Yeah,
that's why. But the core idea of Tzolk'in, it would be hardly overcome.
Yeah, cool. And obviously, people, I'm sure, are aware, but just in case they aren't, so you've had Teotihuacan, and then you've now got kind of two more with other ancient civilizations of Tekhenu and Teotihuacan.
That's me. That's not him.
Oh, sorry.
That's me.
Yeah,
but they're both coming from Board and Dice.
That's stealing names from me.
Yes. Daniele did get a special thanks in the rulebook because his spirit inspired that game. But that one's all me. In fact, so I heard somebody describe it as Teotihuacan meets Anachrony. I was like, okay, I'll run with that.
Take that, yeah.
Because the worker placement is very much Anachrony-like, but the tracks and the resources are very much Teotihuacan-like. Yeah.
We are working hard to try to confuse people,
Yes.
Because already they connected me to Simone Luciani because of our first jobs together, especially Tzolk'in and Marco Polo. So many times they connected me to Lorenzo or Grand Austria just because Simone did it. And now
they're connecting me to those people.
With David for sure. So.
Yes, I've already been asked when am I designing the solo mode for Tzolk'in. I'm like, how did this question even come up?
Wow.
I will do that, promise it, in next year.
That's very cool.
So yes.
So as again, like a lot of your games seem to have a kind of historic element. You know, you've got the ancient civilization games, you've got things like the Marco Polo journeys and things like that. Is that just another interest of yours, and do you like kind of combining those two things?
There are a couple of things to say in this topic. Yeah, I like to read and view documentary TV stuff on ancient civilization because, of course, it's very amazing, you know, to know how those that's our history on one side, and on the other side there's a lot of mystery still to uncover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting, and I must admit, when I started making Tzolk'in, it was because I read a lot of things about Mayan, and I was amazed by this calendar, this gear.
Yeah.
Then it was a mechanism itself, you know, so it was quite easy to imagine it as a game mechanism. The other thing to say is that it's much easier to set a game using ancient civilization because I made Eurogame, right? That's very clear because the main difference between a Euro or German game to an American one is that the theme and experience in the game, that in an American game it's prevalent. You build the game around the theme, and the game experience is the most important thing over the rule set, the elegance, the smoothness, you know. So doing Eurogame, I start from a core mechanism that's most of the time abstract. And many designers, they just don't care about the theme. They just stick something over it, yes, just to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I think about Stefan Feld Games, which is one of the best designers around, but best Eurogame designer around, but he really doesn't care at all about the theme. Since I like to read, and my way of working is trying to find a theme that fit well with the mechanism I'm starting from.
Right.
And the theme is very useful to find the small details and the several sub-mechanisms you need to build the whole structure around the core. Why I'm saying that? Straight to the point. When you're using a theme a bit more heavily than average German, it's very easy to find collision, to find things that doesn't work. So the more it's ancient the theme, the most it's easy to get compromises with mechanisms without people complaining about it.
Cool.
The thing I wanted to add here is that yes, the setting inspiring sub mechanisms is a huge tool, and when Daniele and I started working on Tekhenu, and he asked me, okay, what game should we do? And I said, well, let's have something go around. So hey, why not the shadow of something? And we picked an obelisk and an Egyptian theme immediately. And he came to me with the brilliant dice drafting mechanism. And then when we sat down, all right, what else can you do? Then the theme inspired the scales, because you know the Egyptian myth of the afterlife, and now we consider that one of the fundamental mechanisms of the game, and that was completely theme inspired to have a balance going on. And the other thing I wanted to say about Daniel's games and the theme is a quote from the Blues Brothers movie, is that he does both kind of themes, ancient and medieval.
Yeah.
That was my
Yes. I remember that one.
That's very good. And so you told us a little bit about sort of Tekhenu there. Maybe do you want to just give us a quick rundown, or the elevator pitch as they call it? Either one.
Okay. So it's a dice drafting game where the dice are placed around an obelisk, and the obelisk casts a shadow that rotates throughout the game. and every turn you draft 1 die, and the color of the die relative to the shadow, the value of the die, and the position of the die around the obelisk all matter for different things. And there are 6 actions depending on where the dice are. There are different resources to collect depending on the color of the die. And some actions you want a big die, some actions you want a particular die. But then you have to put it on the scale, and the bigger the die is, the bigger swing it will cause on the scale for your soul. So these are all the concerns you have to maintain throughout the game. And there are tracks, there are things to score points, there are technologies, everything you would expect from a T game.
Yeah. All right. Is that what you're now calling them, the T games?
I mean, I already know what the next one he's working on is.
And it's another T?
Plus, of course.
Sorry, I was going to ask whether you include Trismegistus in the T games, even though I can't say it properly.
I definitely do, but ask Daniel, he designed that one. Do you consider Trismegistus the part of the T games universe?
The T arc.
Of course it is. I quarreled so much with the publishers to include his name because there was...
Yes, there were discussions of other names, but the T universe won out, and now it's a brand. So
I think Trismegistus is a very interesting game, but the problem is that it has a very low entry level, which scare a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
But to me, I have much more fun playing Trismegistus than Teotihuacan, if you want to know.
Okay.
Really?
I can see that. I understand the logic. Although, for me, base, like straight out of the box, I have more fun with Trismegistus than with Teotihuacan as well. But what I really like about Teo is that it's a system in itself, and that's why you've already done 2 expansions, and now I've come aboard and meddled with something coming in the future. Hint, hint. But yeah, so and
the good of Teotihuacan is that it was born as a modular game.
Right.
So expansion there is something natural, not something forced just to try to get money from people. It's something that it was constructed to be expanded and changed.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. It gets a lot of love in the group, does Teotihuacan.
Oh, it's a great game. I noticed, Daniel, that lots of your games use time as a commodity to be manipulated. I think the mechanisms in Tzolk'in were innovative at the time. The actual the rotation of the wheel to represent the movement of time and the effects of the game on the game by those movements of time. And you can see that again in Teotihuacan. And by the sound of it, you have an interest
as well.
You have an interest in time and its effects on the game as a commodity. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I have not a specific interest, but it's something that that came out, especially in Tzolk'in, where basically I introduced time, as you said, as a resource in the game, as a true resource of the game. There are other games that try to do something like that, but I think in Tzolk'in the calendar gear it features very, very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I think it's something, because you have the usual wood, stone, and gold resources in every an ancient game, but time, it's something needed everywhere.
So obviously, some of your games you started working with NSKN, they recently became part of Board and Dice, or something happened, some merger. Yeah, there we go. And so Tekhenu and your other new one that I'm not even going to try and pronounce, David, are both coming from Board and Dice. That's right. Yeah. And so when
Tekhenu is going to be released in the Gencon shaped hole, and Tawantinsuyu will be released in the Essen-shaped hole.
Okay, great. Okay. And are they going to Kickstarter, or are they
No, they are both straight to retail, awesome. And regular pre-order channels apply.
Yeah. Well, that'd be really cool, and we'll look forward to that. And just again, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
I know it's quite a rare opportunity to get to speak to you, and we just want to say on behalf of the group as a whole that we are massive fans of your games, and we just really appreciate you taking the time out to do this, and for all of the fun times that you've given us all. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, and thank you for coming back on, David.
Yeah.
We'll see you,
I'm always happy to hear.
Another 5 minutes, we'll see you again.
Yeah.
Probably. You can never get rid of me.
But that's been great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
we'll
you.
see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye now.